Hello, and welcome to Where the Bush is Burning. I'm your host, Tom Tice, and I'm very glad that you've decided to take a look at what we're doing here today. Now, if you looked at the playlist, the title of the playlist is called Conversations About Christ. And the last time that I posted a video, it was about Moses at the burning bush and how Christ met with him there. Now, today I'm going to tell you another story about another character in the Bible, and this character's name was Elijah. Now, Elijah is a character who appears in 1 Kings. The beginning of the story about Elijah is in 1 Kings chapter 17. He was a prophet in the nation of Israel, the northern kingdom, after the northern kingdom had been divided from the southern kingdom, and he was a prophet during the reign of a man called Ahab. Now, Ahab was a wicked king. He had the reputation for having done worse than any other king in the history before him, of those who were kings before him. He was married to a woman whose name was Jezebel. Jezebel was a Phoenician princess. She had married Ahab, and her name has become synonymous with evil and evil doing, and she was a bad character, a genuinely bad actor who did a lot of pretty devious and hurtful and nasty things, and did it under the reign of King Ahab. She was his queen. So Elijah bursts on the scene in chapter 17. He walks, as it were, into the palace of Ahab and says, it's not going to rain for these years. There's not going to be dew or rain according to these years, during these years, except according to my word. So then he disappears. And so he disappears for several years. So for about 3 years, three and a half years, there's no rain, no dew. And of course, this is an agrarian economy, so crops are failing, things are going bad, famine. There's a lot of hardship as a result of this. And it is the judgment of God as pronounced by Elijah on the nation because of their evil doing. So that is the story of chapter 17. In chapter 18, he reappears, and when he reappears, he challenges Ahab to bring his prophets, the prophets of Baal, up to Mount Carmel. They're going to have a contest to see who is the true God. So all the prophets of Baal, 450 of them, show up. Elijah is on the other side. He's the one representing Jehovah. And so they build these two altars, and then Elijah lets the 450 prophets of Baal go first, try to call down fire from heaven, because that's the challenge. Whichever prophet calls down fire from heaven, that is the testimony that prophet's God is the true and living God. So he lets them go all day long. So they cry out, they cut themselves, they scream, they pray, and all of that. Nothing happens. And then about the time of the evening sacrifice, Elijah pulls the people over. He's built the altar that is the prescribed way in which God told the ancient people to build the altars of God. He has these 12 stones. They sacrifice a bullock. They put it on top with wood. Then he has them take 7 barrels of water, and they pour water all over the sacrifice and all over the altar and the wood, and then they dig a trench and the water fills the trench. So this is a guarantee there's no trickery going on. Then he prays, and when he prays, the fire of God falls from heaven. Just a few words, doesn't pray very long. All of a sudden the fire of God falls. Well, now, the law in Israel at that point was that if there was anyone who was a false prophet, they were supposed to be executed. So Elijah applies that law, and he says, take the 450 prophets of Baal. They have proven to be false prophets. They're to be executed, and so they take them down and to the bottom of the mountain, and they execute them. So then, after that, he begins to pray. And he prays 1 time, then 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 7 times, and each time he got done praying, he would get his servant to go and look out over the Mediterranean Sea to see if there was rain coming. So finally, the seventh time that he prays, the servant comes back and says, there's a cloud out over the Mediterranean Sea, and it's about the size of a man's hand. So Elijah then turns to Ahab, who's still there, and says, get up and get to your house, because there's the sound of abundance of rain. Then he picked up his prophet's robes, and he stuck them in the great leather belt that he wore around his waist, and he ran like a courier ahead of the king's chariot into the gates of Jezreel. So that comprises the 17th and 18th chapter. Now, for our purposes, because this is a conversation about Christ, we're going to come to discuss the 19th chapter, because Christ ministers to Elijah in a very, very particular way, and I want you to see what he does for him, because it's pretty exciting, and I want you to understand why this has value for us. Now, Jezebel heard that, because Ahab told her that Elijah had her prophets executed, the 450 prophets of Baal. She's not happy. She's murderously not happy. So she sends a message to Elijah, and she says, the gods do the same to me if I don't make your life the same as the lives of one of my prophets by tomorrow about this time. So she threatens him to be dead within 24 hours. Now, Elijah at this point is pretty low. And so he gets up and he just leaves. He gets out, goes about a day's journey into the wilderness, and he sits down under a juniper tree. Well, here's how low he is. He says to God, look, just kill me. Just kill me. I'm not better than my fathers. Just kill me, please. And then he lies down. Now, here's where Christ comes in, because we find that the angel of Jehovah, or as we would say, the way it's translated is the angel of Jehovah in some translations. In some translations, it's the messenger of Jehovah. Now, very often, in fact, vast majority of times in the Old Testament, when you see the messenger of Jehovah, you should understand that that's Christ coming in what we call a pre-incarnate form. That is, he's coming in form prior to his having come as the babe in Bethlehem. So this is in the Old Testament, we call these Christophanies. They are pre-incarnate appearances of Christ. So Elijah's there. He's under the juniper tree, and he's lying down, and the messenger of Jehovah touches him, wakes him up, and says, here's something for you to eat. He has a bottle of water, and he has some food that's been cooked on a fire there. And so Elijah eats the food, drinks the water, and lies down again. So he sleeps some more. Then the angel touches him again and wakens him up and says, here, you've got to go a long ways, you need to eat again. So he drinks the water, eats, and then he goes in the strength of that meal for 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God. So then, he goes down to the mountain of God, and that's in the Arabian Peninsula, and so he's down there at this mountain of God called Mount Horeb. And so while he's there, God speaks to him. And he says, in essence, Elijah, what are you doing here? So Elijah starts this conversation, and he has this conversation with God, and he says, look, I've been very zealous for the Lord. These people have broken your covenant. They've torn down your altars. They've killed your prophets. And I only am left. They seek my life to take it away. So he was depressed and wanted to die. Well, now he's saying, look, I'm the only one around. I'm the only one that's standing up for truth. I'm by myself, totally alone, and they're seeking my life to take it away. These people are bent on evil, and here I am, all by myself. Well, God does several things. He causes there to be a great wind. A wind is so strong that it breaks the rocks, and yet he's not in the wind. Then he has an earthquake, and there's this giant earthquake, and yet God's not in the earthquake. And then he has this fire, and yet God's not in the fire. And after that, there's this little small voice. And the voice says to Elijah, "Why are you here? What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah goes through the same thing again. He says, "I've been very zealous for the Lord." He said, they've broken down your altars, they've killed your prophets. I'm the only person left, and they seek my life to take it away. Well, then, here's what's important for us to understand. Our lives are composed of the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the social. Elijah had problems in all those areas. He had problems in the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the social. Christ ministered to him. And how he ministered to him was in all four of those areas. What was the first thing that he did? Well, he let him sleep, he let him drink, and he let him eat. That's the first thing he did. Let him sleep, let him drink, let him eat. Elijah, after all the effort that he had made there on Mount Carmel in chapter 18, was gassed. He was tired. He was exhausted. And that was what God did for him personally first. Christ ministered to him physically. He let him sleep, he let him eat, he let him drink, and built him back up physically. Then he dealt with him spiritually. Because he did all these demonstrations, he showed that he had power. God had power. God had power to cause a wind that would rend the rocks, an earthquake, fire. God had all power. God's all powerful. And Christ demonstrated to him that he was indeed powerful. So spiritually, he's dealing with him, showing him that he's still in control. And so Elijah sees all these raw demonstrations of power with the intent of that he should understand God's still in control. Nothing's out of God's control. So, and then he deals with him spiritually also, and then he deals with his spiritual problems. What's your problem? Well, my problem is this. And he explains it, and he carries that over into the mental. Because, realize, his perception was that he was the only one left. And God in this conversation, if you read all the way through it, says, here, listen, here's what is the truth. There are 7,000 people that have not bowed to Baal. So there's 7,000 people left in, so you're not the only one. You're not alone. And not only that, you don't need to die. You're not gonna die. Because I want you to go and I want you to anoint one king, the king of Syria. I want you to anoint another king, the king of Israel. And then I want you to go and I want you to find Elisha. And Elisha, I want you to anoint, and he's going to be the prophet who's going to follow you. So he provides for him a job, gives him something to do, and then also provides for him socially, because when he got Elisha to become his understudy, if you will, then Elisha was going to take his place. He was going to be able to have somebody to talk with. He was going to be able to have a social support. And so he met his needs physically, mentally, spiritually, and socially. Why does that matter to us? Well, we may find ourselves on various occasions where Elijah was. Maybe we do truly believe in God. Maybe we are people who want to point others to Christ. Maybe we may find ourselves, for various reasons, down physically or mentally or spiritually or socially. Well, the important thing for us to realize, at least at the outset, is that we're not alone. Other people, Elijah being one of them, have experienced the same kind of problems that we experience, physically, mentally, spiritually, or socially. Then also, Christ was able to meet every point of his need. At every place he had a need, Christ was able to handle that need. Was he physically down? Well, he could get him food and drink and let him sleep and deal with him physically. Was he spiritually in doubt? Well, Christ could satisfy that need. Was he mentally not thinking right? Well, yes, he was having those kind of problems, and Christ was able to set him straight mentally. Was he socially isolated? Did he feel all alone? Well, yes, and Christ was able to deal with him in that way. So what's important for us to understand is that Christ knows what we need. He knew what Elijah needed. He dealt with him physically and mentally and spiritually and socially. Is he able to do the same thing for us? Well, he is. He is able to provide for our physical needs. He is able to help us in our spiritual issues. He is able to get our thinking straight. He is able to give us community and others who with whom we can converse, who are also believers and people of like precious faith. So my point to you today, and what I want you to get out of this, is that in this conversation about Christ, Christ understands everything that you're dealing with. He understands your physical, your mental, your spiritual, and your social issues. Is he able to deal with all those things? Yes, he is. Has he done it for others? Well, he did it for Elijah. And there's a lot of other people that I could add to that list. This happens to be the one person we're talking about today. So I want you to be encouraged. I want you to realize that Christ does understand what your issues are, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the social. He's helped other people who are his people. He's able to help you, and I want you to be encouraged by that and realize that Christ does care about every element of your life. He is interested in everything that's going on with you, and as you go through life looking to Christ, you're going to find that he's going to deal with all the areas of your life where you have issues, where there are problems. He's able to deal with those things because he does love you very much. He cares for you very dearly. And so that's our conversation today about Christ. Now, if you appreciate what's going on here, I would like you to like and subscribe. That would be great. If you'd put like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We're going to continue to be doing this, and I want you to get the benefit of it. We're going to be talking primarily about the personal work of Christ, and I'd like for you to get the benefit from it, and I'd like for you to pass it on. So if you'd like to read our devotional, it comes out every day online. HopeHarbor.church, all one word, Hope Harbor, one word, .church. And you can get our devotional there. It's also on Substack. If you go to Substack, you can have it sent to your email. Where the Bush is Burning is the title of how it appears on Substack. We'd like for you to get the benefit of it. And by all means, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And we'll see you again on some other occasion for a conversation about Christ, Where the Bush is Burning. Thank you for watching today.